first glance, the primary function we all know about the bladder is excretion. However, it not only eliminates undesirable fluids, the bladder also collects excess clear fluids, seemingly acting as a large reservoir. Wen 8 states that the bladder's function is to store the Jinye. Jean Schatz, a close collaborator of Claude Larrey, joined by a young Elisabeth Rochat de la Vallée, mentioned that the bladder retrieves Jinye and removes the last traces of life from them after their long journey through the body. This means that, as we mentioned earlier, the bladder serves as a reserve for pure fluids, which are genuine potential energy reserve for the body. Remember that in the lower jaw, precisely from this pure qi extracted by the bladder, wei qi, the defensive qi, is produced, which ascends to the upper jaw for the lungs to distribute to the body's surface, shuan fa function. In this sense, it's interesting to note how, for example, cold stimulates the descent of organic fluids to the bladder, thus favoring the formation of wei qi, which defends us against pathogens on the surface, thanks to this ascent we just mentioned. Therefore, the bladder is not limited to being a receptacle. Its function seems to influence even the portion of fluids that will be reabsorbed in the renal cortex, retaining nutritive Jinye, which are a reservoir of qi and blood, and releasing toxins. The bladder is the food that closes the water pathway. When visualizing the pathway of the Zhutayang bladder meridian, it is as if we are looking down on a landscape, from the top of the skull, from the eyes to the nape, passing through the back, loins, buttocks, and the back of the legs, reaching the feet. Along this long pathway are command points as relevant as all the backshoe points of the Zhangfu, and also their corresponding pension points. This extreme responsibility of the body's yang by its meridian implies that the bladder has an enormous power to organize the body's territories. That is, just as lands and waters are distributed on the Earth's surface, the Zhutayang bladder meridian resonates with the delineation and organization of our territories. Physically, this circulation of fluids occurs through the so-called Ku Li, the energetic structures responsible for humidifying and lubricating the entire organism. Sully de Morant specifies that the bladder would be the regulator of the kidneys. Although in the cycle of physiological action it comes after them, in energetic circulation it would be situated before the kidneys. Elisabeth Rochat de la Vallée says that the bladder has two functions, one called Qi Hua, remember that Hua means transformations. Indeed, the transformation of Qi that is already mine, because it has already passed through the small intestine Fu. On the other hand, the bladder has a function called Kang, which involves storing and preserving internally, in contrast to how Taiyang opens outward. In this way, it controls the quantity and quality of fluids, although it is the kidney that directs its movement and circulation. And as we have seen, the bladder is a reservoir for fluids and therefore of energy. Let's not forget, again, that the Fus are the earth of the Zhang, those that materialize the intentions of the organs. For this reason, even though the power comes from the kidney, the bladder is the one who manages this reserve function. Gilles André adds that the two viscera linked to water are the kidney as its origin and the bladder as its regulation. Furthermore, the authors of the French Acupuncture Association, I don't have the reference, sorry, said that the bladder seems to represent an orientation given to man from the beginning of his creation. we are talking about movement water related to choice. So the kidney manages the desire to live, but the bladder is the one that achieves the verticality of man between heaven and earth. Look at its meridian. Having said this, let's take a moment to reflect on how many elements participate in verticalization. Among the extraordinary vessels, the Du Mai, Chong Mai, Dai Mai, and Chiao Mai. Among the Zhang Fu, the gallbladder, and now the bladder. Moreover, even though we haven't had the opportunity to explain it yet, the Yang Ming energetic level also participates in the verticalization of the being. But let's go on. Su Wen 8 tells us that what can arise from the action of the bladder is the very metamorphosis of qi. Of course, it must refer to Wei Qi, the defensive energy, which, remember, dragged organic fluids with it, which spreads throughout the body, through the Taiyang energetic level, which, as you know, is the first to be affected by perverse energies. It seems that some things are starting to make sense now, don't you think? Let's recall now Su Wen's 8 statement. The bladder is responsible for the distribution and organization of territories. Neijing tells us that the bladder is the minister of the rivers, treasure and excreted fluids. And the Zhengju Ye Jing states that Zhu Daiyang, its meridian, corresponds to the Xing River and establishes inside a relationship of dependence on the bladder connecting the water paths. But the distribution and allocation of territories have always been conditioned by the course of waters. Indeed, civilizations have always grown around rivers or delimited by them. Mesopotamia between the Tigris and Euphrates, Egypt around the Nile, etc. Similarly, Claude Larrey informs us in the way the mythical emperor Yu the Great saved China from the flood. This mythological emperor, considered a surveyor, was the one who, according to Chinese legend, reordered the land by circulating water to the sea. For this, he channeled the 9 lakes connecting the channels and draining stagnant waters. Kespi insists in this idea. The bladder receives fluids from the small intestine and kidneys, selects them and circulates them. The standard treatment points for the bladder Fu are its Mu point, Renmai 3, Zhongji, and its Shu point, bladder 28, Panguang Shu. However, there is another point that strongly evokes these functions of the bladder, to the extent that Kespi considered it a Mu point for years. This acupoint is stomach 28. Why? First, because it is named Shui Tao, water path. Second, its symptoms evoke cold in the bladder and uterus, and its clinical indications focus on the spinal cord, which we will discuss shortly, and the genitals. And third, this is my personal opinion, because it is at the level of Renmai 4, which is a point that applies yang to the mobilization of yin, in this case, Jinye. And, as we know now, there are certain parallels between points belonging to the same metamer. Anyway, let's not get overwhelmed. If the only problem we have with a patient is deciding between 3 acupoints, I can assure you that we are doing well. In doubt, it's worth reviewing clinical indications, considering the patient's typology, and finally, trying them individually. But let's continue with the resonances of this Fu. Shat said years ago that through a kind of feedback, the bladder intervenes in the regulation of fluid sectors throughout the body, and although the kidneys are the driving force behind this operation, it is the bladder, its associated Fu, its earth, that territorially manages life. Now, what do authors mean when they talk about territorial management? Territorial organization occurs at all levels, but let's not forget that we are at the Taiyang level, which resonates with the paternal archetype, as Suen 79 says, Taiyang is the father. That is, in social, economic, mental areas, etc. In clinical practice, this means that in the face of a Jinye management pathology, to determine if the bladder is involved, it is necessary to assess the psyche. It is unlikely that the target point is located at this energy level when the individual is adequately organized. In contrast, whether the person is chaotic and disorganized or excessively organized and methodical, a resonance at this level should be considered. Note that we have encountered individuals who are disorganized before. In the Extraordinary Meridian Registry, they were of the Yang Wei Mai typology, as we explained in the playlist about the extraordinary meridians. At the Zhang Fu level, lung pathology, master of breaths, could also present with a lack of order, which could not descend from heaven. And now we find that the bladder viscera's alteration can also manifest as structural disorganization. Well, all these individuals may be disorganized, but they are for different reasons, belonging to different terrains that we will learn to discriminate. Here, the interesting is not to close possibilities, but to expand diagnostic options before choosing an acupoint. On the other hand, Bernard Ziegler says that in bladder and kidney disorders, there's a disturbance of psychic coherence. In the online seminar that I'm finishing preparing on Do My Points, we make several excursions. In one of the videos of the Glimpses playlist, we share one of them, where we talk about the North. The North has two aspects, a celestial one, which is related to the polar star and the Big Dipper, and a terrestrial one, which is related to the water agent. In this video, we comment that the etymology of the word coherence is coherence, that is, something inherited. And here, Ziegler talks to us about a disturbance of the psychic coherence in the organs related to the water agent. Indeed, it is the water movement that anchors us to be coherent and prevents us from wandering. But let's return to the question. In practice, what is a territorial disturbance? Well, a difficulty in governing one's own space. This can be read at many levels. It can be someone who does not know their area, where they can feel good, how to express themselves. It can be someone who does not know their own limits, who is not clear that they can and should occupy their own space. Someone who's afraid to stand up and occupy their space. Or someone with excessive fear of invading other space. Graphically, we can draw it as not being clear about the limits of rivers. That is a territorial problem. Having this clear requires mental clarity and organization. And since there's no symptomatology in the points of the Zhu Taiyang bladder meridian that refers to the bladder as the administrator of the territory, except for its Luo point, bladder 58, Fei Yang, which I have an explanation and 6 clinical cases published in the International Acupuncture Journal, Revista Internacional de Acupuntura. It's a Latin one. In principle, to act on this function, we should direct ourselves to the 3 points mentioned earlier in relation to this viscera, bladder 28, Renmai 3, or stomach 28. To conclude, Kespi says that since the bladder organizes the body's territory at all levels and distributes information in it, its function seems to be comparable to the spinal cord. Another author who leads us to this relationship between the bladder and the spinal cord is none other than George Soulier-de-Morand, who describes 4 points: bladder 40, kidney 7, stomach 28, and Ximbao Luo 3, which have in common both an effect on the bladder and symptoms along the spinal cord. Soulier-de-Morand also says that in case of bladder deficiency, there's a lack of character, that the person easily gets scared. This we can relate to a Tai-Yang resonance. But he also tells us that other symptoms may be cerebral confusion or poor hearing. And this does seem to reflect an essence Jing deficiency at the brain level. Now that we have explored both, I find it intriguing to draw a comparison between the functions of the bladder and the small intestine in acupuncture. It is crucial to remember that both constitute the Tai-Yang energetic level, acting as a protective shell and complementing the armor represented by the Dumai meridian. From a physical perspective, both are associated with the skin, the most superficial yang structure possible. Tai-Yang, great yang. Mentally, they both support gestuality and the assertion or defense of one's own space, a consideration especially relevant in martial arts. In the water pathway, the bladder and small intestine manage the fluids. However, what sets them apart? I would suggest contemplating the small intestine in an individual with Tai-Yang typology coupled with a fire typology, which separates and transforms the fluids. Physically, this Fu handles the management of daily life, primarily involving discrimination. On the other hand, the bladder oversees the distribution of Jinye along its pathways. Texts state, its fluids are the only ones that are clear. Physically, it predominantly governs the structural management of who I am, where I am, what space do I occupy, what is my place. Some individuals lack clarity about their location and their limits. This foundational structure management aspect is what the bladder organ governs.